players in this other than the lawyer, other than the lawyers you talk about and the fund management?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There are really three players.
Hmm.
There's the patent owner who's been wronged, their technology's been stolen, and the law firm who's litigating for them, and then we're the funder. We're the funder that pays the law firm all the costs. So it's really just those three entities, and then of course the defendants who we sue.
Okay, got it. Um, okay, so why is it so unique? I think you mentioned in previous episodes that you guys are only one of the very few that play in this market. Why, if it's so good, why is not everybody else doing this?
Yeah, in order to get involved in patent litigation, which is famously lucrative, in patent infringement cases, I mean, there have been multi-billion-dollar awards, and fairly frequently, nine-figure awards. So there's often a lot of money involved. However, patent law is very esoteric, and you really need to know what you're doing. In order to be a fully trained patent litigator in the United States, you really need about 20 years of experience. And so it takes a lot of experience and know-how. You have to understand the technology and the law, and also the litigation practices. So it's a very esoteric space. The opportunities right now in patent law for litigation financing are huge because litigation financing has not existed in the United States for very long. It's not a mature industry. It's still in its infancy. And so for very specialized fields, there are a lot of opportunities. We have very, very little competition, from other funders in this space. It'll change over time. Over the next decade, others will get into the space, but right now is a very good time to be in it.
So I have two follow-up questions to what you just said. Number one is this a bigger, like a big market play or middle market play or a small market play? And the second one is what's so unique about patent litigation? Like, what are the criteria that that you have to meet in order to win the case?
Yeah, that's a great question, and the answer is it's both. It's both a small and a large market play, and we have both those opportunities because of our unique model. So we only finance a very specific type of case where infringement is very strong. There are multiple defendants, five or six or seven or more infringers, and there's no other weakness in the case. And so we break it into two different phases. In the first phase, lasts about a year. And what we do is that's more of a small play, and that's more of almost a debt model where we take settlements the first year, and provide an investor return of 30% or so for the first year based on, not a lot happens the first year. It's not that expensive the first year, and it's very predictable when the defendants actually infringe. It's obvious to not just us, but them that they infringe. They provide small settlements, and that provides the first year return for investors. But with the large defendants, we like to not settle with them. And then after a year, assuming the case has gone very well, then what we do is we bring in a second set of investment, which is more expensive, and go forward with each defendant, and then try and get a very large award, 8 figures, 9 figures at trial. So it's both. It's such a unique opportunity where investors can choose either the small market play, where it's very low risk, almost like a debt deal, and get a nice return, predictable 30% return, or also do the second phase where it's more binary, and it's a larger spend, but you can get a 5x or an 8x or a return of that magnitude.
Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot of information. Let me try to
Yeah,
summarize here so make
yeah.
sure my understanding is correct. first of all, I think you mentioned to me before you have case groups. So you actually, I think what you said is you pick cases where infringement is very clear, like the win rate is very high, and then there's multiple defendants, like multiple companies you can sue for that one defendant. Is that right?
Yep, that's
Uh,
exactly correct.
for that one plaintiff. So
Yeah,
essentially, you take out one case and you can multiply that case into like 5 or 10 identical cases. It's just different defendants. So you can 5 or 10 times your payout. Okay. Okay.
that's exactly it. And it's very
Okay.
predictable to receive these smaller settlements along the way, which is why it's a very predictable return with
Okay.
a nice return after that first year. Yes.
Okay. Then my second question follow up to that is, um, the you say first year is like returns 30%
Yeah.
roughly. Is
Yes.
it
Yes.
so? Do people get 30% of their principal back, or is it principal plus 30%?
No, principal plus 30, principal plus 30. It's a very nice return. And we're able to do that for the reasons, like I said, that litigation financing is still in its infancy in the US. We have almost no competition in the United States right now for these cases. So we take only 2% of the cases we're presented. So we really take the best of the best of the best. So right now we're able to do that. Whether we're going to be able to do that in 5 or 8 years, I don't know. I assume the market will be more saturated. We'll have more competitors at that point. But at this point, we're operating with very few competitors, so we're able to provide that nice return.
Okay, wow. Okay, we're gonna get to the track record, later on, but okay, that's very good. That's very clear. And then I think you also said after the principal ended, around 30% was paid out, like 20-30% was paid out, there's still the possibility to get a much more profit sharing um in the non-settled cases in that case group where the lawsuit could claim up to damages of like 100 million or 90 million or something like that. So there's more money to fall.
Yeah, it's absolutely correct. So the first year investors have the right of first refusal if they'd like to come in and fund the second year of the case. And we only present those cases for the second year financing that have gone perfectly, where so far we've been winning on all the issues and the case really looks good. I mean, it's interesting. Well, you can do a lot of due diligence before the case starts, but there's no substitute for actually litigating the case for a year and a half to actually see how it's going. So we only take those cases that are in the second year that have gone really well and that continue to be very strong to offer to our first year investors and then who have the right of first refusal. And then if there's other financing available, then we bring it in for other outside investors. But that second year is more binary, because let's say we're putting $2 million in against a single defendant. Well, we're either going to win or we're going to lose. 95% of the time, though, they settle before trial. But to go through trial, there's going to be a winner or loser for 5% of the cases, but 95% settle before trial.
Got it. So just to make it clear, I heard it right. Essentially, most people choose to settle, and then for whatever left, by the time you guys decided to whether to go to pursue the trial or not, it's already later in the case, and it's very clear to figure out probability of winning, and then the investor can make a decision whether they want to participate or not for the second stage, right?
That's
Okay,
exactly correct. Yeah.
that's great. That's really unique. I haven't come across other models like this out there.
Yeah, we actually invented this model. Nobody has pursued this model before. And frankly, the overall thesis is that it's so much better before significant money is invested because the first year is relatively cheap. It's relatively inexpensive to litigate. But the second year, you get into discovery, depositions, interrogatories, all these things that are very expensive. And so our thesis was, well, why would you possibly commit to spending a lot of money until you've actually litigated for a year and a half, and you have absolute proof that the case has gone perfectly.
Okay. Now, uh, last question on this particular slide. So why do you think like the first year investment risk is really low and most people choose to settle? It's very predictable, very predictable. Why is that?
Yeah, because it's our experience, and we've been doing this for some time, that when we pick cases where infringement is very clear and the defendant has significant multi-million-dollar liability, that instead of spending money on the lawyers and all that, most will really settle. Just settle for 150, $300,000, fairly small settlements. But when you do a few of them, that provides the nice return for the first year investors because, again, our litigation costs are fairly low the first year.
Oh, so let me summarize. So that means that that's also why you only take cases that which has multiple defendants because you can wrap like because for them each defendant for them to settle it's super cheap really. But if you take 5 or 6 of them for each one claim, you can multiple the small amount into a pretty decent amount. That's why I think you can offer principal plus like some decent returns on the first year. Okay.
That's exactly it. And we find it's very predictable when infringement, remember, we only take cases where infringement is very clear. And then also, frankly, we're settling for amounts that are less than what the defendant's legal fees would be the first year. And so it's pretty a simple decision for most defendants to settle.
That's smart. Okay. Great.